to look at the resolutions that they had taken before we go ahead to now say we dismiss and let them go ahead. So that's why I wanted for the committee chairman to tell us what informed their decision.
Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. Minority Leader, let me say that I check our resolutions, and in some of our resolutions we said the president should change them, the president should remove them, the president should replace them as service chiefs. And my understanding is that they have not been nominated to serve as service chiefs. They have been removed, which I think is a plus for this Senate, because that is at least looking like it's compliance with our resolution. Now, if they have been given, if they are nominated for something that is different, I think our resolution asking for their removal as service chiefs does not cross over to that nomination. So my feeling is, let's advise the executive to use the experiences of these retired service chiefs and these nominees, if they are eventually confirmed as ambassadors, to be posted to countries where they can add significant values, especially, and this is not without prejudice to what the executive will do, countries that surround us, where we need to fight the Boko Haram insurgency, the banditry, and because of their experiences in the field, they should be able to interact very closely, sufficiently, to advise and create the atmosphere for working together, for partnership, for cooperation between Nigeria and those countries. And I will urge that we should, no, please. No, you can only make one comment. We have others who have raised their hands. So I think on that score, the nomination cannot be nullified because we said they should be changed. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, without prejudice to whatever the chairman
Okay, point of order, Minority Leader.
Point of order, Mr. President, Order 43. Personal explanation. Mind yourself. By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the Senate, of the President of the Senate, the Senator may make a personal explanation, although there should be no question. There be no question before the Senate. But no controversial matter may be brought forward.
Minority Leader, distinguished colleagues, he is here to tell us what the matter is. So I think it's premature to judge him and call what he's going to say as controversial. Minority Leader, you are very well protected. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have only one question in this intervention. Are we...
No, you have a personal explanation to make, not a question. Minority Leader, I rule you out of order completely. Any comments, please? Leader of the Senate, Committee of the Whole.
Mr. President, I would have wanted to continue the debate, but I think we have come to a conclusive end. I would therefore move a motion for the Senate to resolve into the Committee of the Whole to consider this very important report.
Minority Leader, please second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I reluctantly second.
No, I didn't hear you. You said reluctantly.
I second.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, Those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves into Committee of the Whole to consider the report of our Committee on Foreign Affairs, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, we do approval at this stage. Minority Leader, please, we are doing approval and will the Senate approve the nomination of General Abayomi G. Olaniseko, retired from Ekiti State, as non-career ambassador designate? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Lieutenant General Tukur Y. Buratai, retired from Borno State, as non-career ambassador designate? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Vice Admiral Ibok Ete E. Ibas, retired from Cross River State, as non-career ambassador designate? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Air Marshal Sadiq Baba Abubakar, retired from Bauchi State, as non-career ambassador designate? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Air Vice Marshal Mohammed S. Usman, retired from Kano State, as non-career ambassador designate? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move a motion for this Senate to resume plenary in order for the Chair to report progress.
Leader.
Mr. President, I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate reverse to plenary for the Chair to report progress, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You don't want us to go back to plenary. The Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on Foreign Affairs on the screening of Mr. President's nominees for appointment as non-career ambassadors of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and approved the nominations of 1. General Abayomi G. Olaniseko, retired, Ekiti State; Lieutenant General Tukur Y. Buratai, retired, Borno State; Vice Admiral Ibok Ete Ibas, retired, Cross River State; Air Marshal Sadiq Baba Abubakar, retired, Bauchi State; Air Vice Marshal Muhammad S. Usman, Kano State, as non-career ambassadors of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Confirmation. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of General Abayomi G. Olaniseko, retired from Ekiti State, as non-career ambassador designate? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Madam, you have gone on break. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Lieutenant General Tukur Y. Buratai? Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Lieutenant General Tukur Y. Buratai, retired from Borno State, as non-career ambassador designate? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Vice Admiral Ibok Ete E. Ibas, retired from Cross River State, as non-career ambassador designate? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Air Marshal Sadiq Baba Abubakar, retired from Bauchi State, as non-career ambassador designate? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Air Vice Marshal Mohammed S. Usman, retired from Kano State, as non-career ambassador designate? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of General Abayomi G. Olanishakur, retired from Ekiti State, is hereby confirmed as non-career ambassador designate. The nomination of Lieutenant General Tukur Y. Buratai, retired from Borno State, is hereby confirmed as non-career ambassador designate. The nomination of Vice Admiral Ibok Ete E. Ibas, retired from Cross River State, is hereby confirmed as non-career ambassador designate. The nomination of Air Marshal Sadiq Baba Obaka, retired from Bauchi State, is hereby confirmed as non-career ambassador designate. The nomination of Air Vice Marshal Muhammad S. Usman, retired from Kano State, is hereby confirmed as non-career ambassador designate. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. And let me reiterate and emphasize on my earlier comments. These nominees that we have just confirmed are nominees that had served this great country to the best of our ability as service chiefs, and today they have been confirmed as non-career ambassadors. Our appeal to the executive arm of government is to make sure that we utilize their experiences as service chiefs, as military men, to the best, because we should be able to post them to countries where they can be much more useful in terms of their engagements as ambassadors. We wish them a very successful career in their capacities as non-career ambassadors. Congratulations to all of them. Leader of the Senate.
The second order of the day is the second reading of the Federal University of Latvia Teaching Hospital Establishment Bill 2021. The distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 9th February 2021. Mr. President, you wish to invite the distinguished Senator Umar Tanko Almakura to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Umar Tanko Almakura.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Umar Tanko Almakura. I represent Nasarawa South. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'm delighted to lead the debate on the general principles of the Federal University Latvia Teaching Hospital Bill 2021. You will recall that this bill was read for the first time Tuesday, 9th of February 2021. The objective of this bill is to provide for the establishment of a teaching hospital for the Federal University Latvia, and also provide for a management board for the teaching hospital sought to be established through this bill. This is intended to facilitate the clinical training of medical students that will be of internationally acceptable standards for the university. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, permit me to bring to the attention of this distinguished Senate that the Federal University of Latvia has already set up a College of Medicine and has gotten the approval of the National University Commission to admit medical students in the 2020-2021 academic session. In preparation for the takeoff, the teaching hospital will require clinical training of medical students of the university. The Nasarawa State government has donated a newly built hospital in Latvia and also agreed to hand over the Dalhatu Arab Specialist Hospital to the university to be used as facilities for the takeoff of the proposed teaching hospital in the interim. The essence of this bill is therefore to provide the legal framework for the operation of the proposed teaching hospital for clinical training of medical students of the College of Medicine, Federal University, Latvia. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it is expected that the teaching hospital, when established, will not only serve as a training ground for medical students, but also offer specialized tertiary healthcare services to patients within the state and indeed other patients referred to it from other parts of Nigeria. Similarly, bearing in mind that the new teaching hospital and other tertiary health centers within the North Central Zone are already overwhelmed by referrals from teaching and tertiary healthcare services. The proposed teaching hospital, when established, would therefore complement specialized tertiary healthcare services offered by the few teaching hospitals within the North Central Zone, geographical zone, such as Jos University Teaching Hospital. Mr. President, this bill should therefore be seen as another legislative response to our ongoing efforts to improve medical training, expand existing medical facilities, and generally improve on healthcare service delivery across 3 levels of public health service delivery in Nigeria. This is against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic. It is on the basis of the foregoing that I urge my distinguished colleagues to support the passage of this simple but impactful amendment bill. Mr. President, I wish to state that in compliance with Order 77, subsection 3 of the Senate Standing Orders 2015, and as amended, this bill, when passed, will have no immediate financial burden on the federal government treasury, as the facilities for the immediate takeoff of the proposed teaching hospital for the Federal Teaching Hospital Latvia is already there, and its management board have been donated by the National State government. Mr. President, I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you. Oh, Deputy Minority Leader. Oh, okay. Senator Gabriel Suswan.
Yeah, Mr. President, I'm Dr. Gabriel Suswan, Benue Northeast. Mr. President, in supporting this bill, I want to advert the attention of this Senate to the fact that this state has been very disadvantaged, especially in the area of tertiary healthcare. And so, Mr. President, what the distinguished senator has done here is to enhance the healthcare of this very disadvantaged state. And so, Mr. President, I just want to urge my colleagues. I'm saying this because I know how disadvantaged they are. Most colleagues might not necessarily know. Based on my knowledge, I want to urge my colleagues to unanimously support distinguished Senator Makura so that this bill will pass. Mr. President, I so submit.
Is there anybody against the bill? Okay, I'll put the question. Those in favor that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, any, the ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate. Second reading.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of Plenary University Latvia Teaching Hospital and for other connected matters therein, 2021, SB 616, second reading.
A bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the Federal University Latvia Teaching Hospital and for other connected matters therein, 2021, second reading taken. And the bill is referred to the Committee on Health to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is the second reading of the Federal College of Crop Science and Food Technology, Lere, Kaduna State, Establishment Bill 2021. Mr. President, distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, 13th November 2019. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Suleiman Abdukwari to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Suleiman Abdukwari.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Suleiman Abdukwari. I represent Kaduna North. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am grateful for this opportunity to lead the debate on the principles of the bill for an act to establish the Federal College of Crop Science and Food Technology, Lere, Establishment, etc., Bill 2019. The bill was read for the first time on Wednesday, 13th November 2019. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, as a responsible member of the international community, Nigeria has committed to the Sustainable Development Goals. And during the 2020 Voluntary National Review, it was resolved that we focus on a number of SDGs, especially SDG 1, which preaches no poverty, and SDG 8, decent work and economic growth. The establishment of a College of Crop Science and Food Technology in Lere local government area of Kaduna State, one of Nigeria's most prolific and uniquely located areas, has become an imperative even in the diversification agenda of Mr. President. If this bill is supported, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, steps towards the realization of SDG 2, SDG 4, SDG 9, and 12, which emphasize zero hunger, quality education, industry, innovation, and responsible consumption will be met. The immediate advantage of this institution is that farmers and potential investors from the catchment area will have the capacity to get the full benefit, full value chain from their produce, rather than selling them just as raw materials and thereafter importing finished products. Some of the objectives of this college are that students will be able to study and understand local and other world major food, feed, turf, and fiber crops and their environment. It will also include the study of breeding, genetics, production, and management. There will be emphasis on developing and applying new technology to ensure a safe, abundant food supply and sustainable agro-ecosystem. Strengths of the program when in place: students will receive top quality classroom, field laboratory experiences required for well-paying careers in industry
government, and farming. Students will be able to pursue research in such areas as organic crop production systems, soil sciences, plant breeding, biotechnology, groundwater contamination prevention, turf and golf course management. Students will also study under professors who are amongst the nation's most productive and creative in the field. The bill is arranged into 29 clauses with 11 schedules and divided into 7 parts, consisting of the establishment, composition, staff, establishment of academic board, financial provisions, miscellaneous, and supplementals. In conclusion, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, in line with Order 77, Sub 3 of the Senate Standing Orders 2015, as amended, a compendium of the financial implication of the establishment of Federal College of Crop Science and Food Technology, Lere, Kaduna State, is hereby attached. I therefore urge Mr. President and my very distinguished colleagues to support the second reading of this bill. I so submit.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Samegu, you raise your hand.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Sam Ebu. I represent Ebonyi North Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise up to support this bill, but with some very critical observation, which I want the Senate to note, especially as it concerns the title of this bill. Mr. President, crop science and food technology are two departments in the Faculty of Agriculture, two disciplines. And ordinarily, I would have jumped at this title if a college is established for Department of Crop Science, because I studied crop science. I also taught crop science. But the implication, Mr. President, is that in a college, when students apply for departments or for courses, Department of Crop Science is one of those departments that have the least number of people who apply to enter. The same thing with food technology. And when you have these two departments in a college, that college, if established, we have a provost, a registrar, bursar, full complements of staff to have a college. Then, and you have very little students to cater for. So I would have suggested that the title should be Establishment of Federal College of Agriculture, so that those who want to study animal science, those who want to study soil science, agroeconomics, land survey, and all the component department faculties of that agriculture will be there to justify the huge amount of money that we use to sustain the college, and to give people other opportunity to study agriculture at that level, at medium manpower level. So, Mr. President, in as much as I support this, I would want the scope to be expanded by changing the title to Federal College of Agriculture. That's my submission, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody against the bill? Well, let me re-echo the submission by Senator Samegu, and I believe that when we pass this bill for second reading, at the public hearing, this kind of observation could be made, and of course I agree with you. We need to justify the investments that we'll make, but I believe that at the public hearing, this kind of issues can be addressed. So with this, I'll put the question. Those in favor of the motion that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Federal College of Crop Science and Food Technology, Lere, Kaduna State, and for other related matters thereof, 2021, SB 160, second reading.
A bill for an act to establish the Federal College of Crop Science and Food Technology, Lere, Kaduna State, and for other related matters thereof, 2021, second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Stephen Adi Ode on the urgent need for the restoration and revalidation of the Safe School Initiative in Nigeria. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Stephen Adi Ode to move this important motion.
Senator Adi Stephen Ode.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Stephen Adi Ode. I represent the good people of Cross River North. Mr. President, I rise to move the motion on urgent need for the restoration and revalidation of the Safe School Initiative in Nigeria. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, the Senate is aware that the future of any nation in today's dynamic world is dependent on the provision of quality education for its citizens and the basic and post-basic stages of education. Equally aware that the Safe School Initiative was launched to promote security and safety of schools, pupils, students, teachers, as well as facilities in 2014. The Senate is further aware that the Safe School Initiative was formulated to design and implement the best of global standards in the educational sector in Nigeria through the employment of qualified teachers, provision of library and laboratory equipment, conducive environment for teaching and learning, as well as provision of habitable classrooms and hostels. The Senate is concerned that the unfortunate increase in the insecurity crisis in the country, with the advanced target are schools in diverse locations, especially the regrettable kidnap of the Chibok and Dapchi school girls in Borno State and Yobe State respectively, the Kangara school boys in Katsina State, and most recently the kidnap of students of Government Science College, Kagara, Niger State, have exposed the unimaginable decadence and dilapidation in the schools in Nigeria, drawing inference from the footages from the school environment. The Senate is worried that these ugly and condemnable activities of insurgency, kidnapping, wanton killings, and other associated crimes will not abate, especially in consideration of the payment of ransom for the release of victims, and as reportedly hinted by the immediate past chief of army staff in the course of his confirmation as ambassadorial nominee. Senate is also concerned that these incidences of kidnapping school children, students, or invasion of school premises across Nigeria have created negative publicity for Nigeria, with the attendant loss of confidence by foreign investors in the Nigerian economic climate. Further concerned that our nation had lost a large number of men and women, as well as military resources of our overstretched military, to these kidnappers, terrorists, bandits, and other criminal elements, including the recent plane crash which resulted in the death of our Air Force officers who were on a mission to to aid the release of the recently kidnapped Kagara schools, the students and workers. The Senate is worried that this incident may instill fears in parents and guardians and force them to withdraw their children and ward from schools or prevent them from sending their children to school, which will in turn defeat the government's educational policy of literacy for all and further deprive our children of the opportunity of having quality education to compete with their peers globally. Convinced that the latest twists in the criminal activities associated with insecurity in Nigeria, especially as it relates to the invasion of school premises, as well as kidnap of students and teachers for ransom, can be contained and defeated through the full implementation of Safe School Initiative by all stakeholders. And also convinced that the full implementation of the Safe School Initiative will ensure the best of global standards in the educational sector in Nigeria through the employment of qualified teachers, provision of library and laboratory equipment, conducive environment for teaching and learning, as well as provision of habitable classrooms and hostels. Accordingly resolved, 1, urge the federal government to collaborate with the various state governments in order to restore, revive, and revalidate the Safe School Initiative in Nigeria. 2, urge the federal government of Nigeria to collaborate with the various states and local government areas, area councils to urgently design and implement a workable arrangement to deploy well-armed security teams around our schools in Nigeria. 3, urge the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces to urgently make the necessary directives in this regard. And 4, urge the Federal Minister of Education to urgently design a blueprint on the implementation of these laudable programs. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I urge us to support this motion. Thank you very much.
Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I'm Aliu Sabi Abdullahi. I represent Niger North Senatorial District. I'm from Niger State. Mr. President, first let me commend the mover of this motion, distinguished Senator Odi. This motion is indeed very timely, especially coming on the heels of the last ugly incident of the kidnap of school children from Kagara Government Science Secondary School. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we need to take note of the implication of kidnapping of school children. We know we are fighting insurgency and the bandits. And the philosophy of the insurgency is to the effect that Western education is not good. And whatever is being done to dissuade parents from sending their children to school is something we must take very seriously. I want to say that I believe in the spirit of Nigerians and their perseverance, because even at the heels of this kidnap, many parents resolve that they will never back down from sending their children to school. This motion talks about Safe School Initiative, and I think it is something that should be given all the support. Let me say that at the federal level, we have federal unity schools, and I think the federal government must begin to take this Safe School Initiative seriously by showing example at these federal unity schools, for example. And we all know that some of these schools, if you have seen them, they lack fence. And I think as a first step, the Federal Ministry of Education must take this particular thing very seriously, so that all the unity schools, wherever they are located, as federal government schools designed to promote the unity of our citizens, must be given a first line action by ensuring that perhaps beginning from next year's budget, those schools that are not having fenced begin to get attention for very good fence and additional security as suggested in this motion. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we also have to note that because of what is happening, some sections of our country, children are already missing out on education. And I think the Federal Minister of Education should provide leadership. Fortunately, we have a system where we have the National Council on Education, which involves all commissioners of education across the state. And I think perhaps when we come to look at the resolutions, the last one where we talk about Minister of Education, perhaps I would like to make an amendment to say that under the auspices of the National Council on Education, so that all the states of the Federation will have a buy-in, and then they can develop that kind of blueprint, which will help to move this thing forward. With this, I urge my colleagues to second this motion. Thank you.
Senator Kejef.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, Jeff. I represent Benue Northwest. Mr. President, thanks for the opportunity. I rise to support this motion in its entirety and the reasons that have been adduced for the need for this motion. I agree with the premise for the motion because with insecurity in our institutions, you cannot have well-turned-out students. And I can go on and on what that would mean for development in our society, because we need these young people to be well turned out educationally in order for us to have a society that is worth talking about. However, I'm sorry to say that I'm not optimistic about finding a solution to insecurity in our institution without solving the insecurity problem in the larger society. Because come to think of it, these people have targeted institutions because of the reasons that have already been adduced. That is that education is evil. I mean, there are insecurity across the country, in institutions across the country, but you can see that it is most pronounced, and even the motion brings out examples that are all located in the Northeast. So it further highlights what we've been talking about all the while, that we have to deal with this insecurity because it permeates all facets of our national life, not just in our educational sector. It is critically important that we do that. Otherwise, we'll continue to come up again and again with a motion of this sort. It is very, very unfortunate, and I don't want to go to that area because I think without finding a solution to insecurity in Nigeria today, we cannot talk about security on our campuses or in other educational institutions. Thank you.
Senator Comrade Smart Adeyemi, Kogi West.
Nagode. Your Excellency, I rise to support this motion. In supporting this motion, Mr. President, as I sat down and I cast my mind back to those days when we were in primary school, even though I didn't grow up to see Sardauna as Premier of Northern Region, but in the Northern Region during Sardauna, our pupils and children were given even picnic in cartons. You know, they were well taken care of. The Northern Region was a very peaceful place, and education started flourishing under him. Today, Mr. President, we do not even talk about giving milk to our children in school. We are talking about the safety of our children. If we were not taken care of then, with those programs initiated by Sardauna, maybe many of us will not be here. It is unfortunate today, Mr. President, with all the problems confronting our nation. I want to commend my colleague for this bill. If there's one thing we must focus on, is the welfare of our children. The well-being of the leaders of tomorrow must be of concern to all of us. If we cannot give them those things that we were given when we were growing up, I think the little we can do for them is to keep them safe. So I want to call on governors to do all that they can. Nigeria is such a large nation. that you do not talk about federal government being able to police all these institutions of learning. It's on this now I want to say, Mr. President, despite that there are some governors who are doing their best. In our state, Mr. President, we are lucky we have a governor who has taken security as a serious priority. We are bothered by now. I had an incident where the unfortunate thing that is happening to some of our neighboring states had happened. Some governors are committed to the well-being of their people. In my state just last week, Mr. President, my governor awarded contract for renovation of schools and providing security services, along with road construction in some states and overhead bridges. Mr. President, in some states of Nigeria today, where you have highly intelligent people, highly educated people, highly enterprising people, like Abia, they are governed by drunkards. The governor of Abia is a champion drinking man. He has done nothing for his people. Roads are not constructed in Abia, Mr. President. Abia people are impoverished more than ever before. Abia people are unfortunate to have their governor. And the person who is representing them here, I'm not sure any serious concern about it. I'm talking about who is here castigating the state that you do well. Abia is governed by a man who is a drunkard, who is a champion drinking man. My own governor is enterprising, it's not right. Yaya Bonga Pedro is a man of honor, a man of integrity. We are proud of our governor is doing well, and we are saying that our governor is competent enough according to the provision of the constitution to be president of this country. If anybody has anything about his ambition, it is not for him. We are proud of our governor and he's doing well. Our state is safe, and we are proud to say that we are from Kogi State. Mr. President, I want to say that security must be of serious priority. If anybody want to castigate any state, not
Distinguished Senator Smart Ademi. Senator Smart Ademi, somebody raise a point of order. Please, who is going to read 53:7? Okay, I will read it myself. It shall be out of order to use offensive and insulting language. Senator Smart Ademi, continue. But be mindful of what you say.
Mr. President, I'm sorry, I'm only saying that there's a need for governors to be more focused, to provide the infrastructure facilities of the great people that they govern, to make sure the people are safe and secured, and to make sure that roads are constructed, infrastructure facilities are provided, and that we should be courageous enough to say where they are lacking. More so when we have governors with questionable characters who are governing
Senator Nicholas Tofomo.
Thank you, our Senate President. About Safe Schools initiative. It's a good initiative and I'm supporting the motion. But there are a lot of safe initiatives. We can have safe home initiatives. We can have safe office initiatives. These initiatives are good initiatives. But the most important thing is that schools must be taken properly care of. There are many schools in Nigeria, they don't have fence, they don't have gates, they are very, very left open, they are not properly secured. So let us secure our schools and improve our Nigerian police. If we reform Nigerian police properly, they will be allocated to these schools and they will give enough security. So our internal security has an effect on all this kidnapping of our school children. So what needs to be done is that let us improve Nigerian policing system, improve these schools, and put adequate security. When we put all this together, we will be able to get a good result. Thank you.
Senator Nora Ladi Dadut.
Mr. President, thank you very much. My distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Nora Dadut, representing Plateau South. Yes, this issue is no doubt very critical. All of us here seated, we must have passed through either a boarding school or what we call a day school, that is secondary school. And we have different experiences. But the issue of security based on this presentation of this motion by Senator Stephen Ode, that is the Safe School Initiative in Nigeria, is no doubt something that we must accept and support. So I want to support this motion and to also add that the security of our future leaders, because these children in these schools are our future. And if we don't support this bill, it means we are failing in our duty as stakeholders and of course as leaders in our nation. So I want to say this. The recent abduction and killings, kidnapping that had been surveyed and also has been going on, all these are issues that are bound to affect our generation, our future generation. So I want to say this, that the Safe School Initiative in Nigeria should not just be revalidated, but should also be given priority in saving the souls of our children. And I know that all of us here, we have wards, or we have children, we have grandchildren in these schools. So I pray that this bill will be supported and of course be granted the correct and right consideration by us here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Engineer Baribe, and I represent Abia South. Mr. President, I would like to make a clarification. Unfortunately, what has happened here today is one of the problems that you see from social media. I never made any comment on the governor of Kogi State. Never. I have not made any comment. What has happened is what we see going on today. People write something and tag your name to it. And if you don't ask questions, you will not know whether you actually said it or not. And I see so many things like that tagged to me, but I don't talk. The last time I saw Nuhuru Badu, I also spoke to him. Something was tagged to his name that was very deleterious. I'm very surprised that my good friend and colleague decided to open up on the governor of Abia for something that I never said. Because when I make some statement, I make it to a newspaper or to an online medium.
Minority Leader. Minority Leader.
Mr.
I think the air is cleared now. It's not fouled, or if it was deodorized. So you can just address the motion, please.
I will address the motion
and ask my very good friend that he owes an apology to the governor of Abia for the very bad statements made that had no basis. I can go ahead too to make only 2 comments on the motion. The Safe School Initiative, when it was started, there was also a budgetary provision for it. A couple of $1 million. And I would have expected my very good friend, Stephen, while supporting his motion, that he will have dug into what happened to the funds that were brought out for the Safe School Initiative.
maybe at the time that we are going to consider all the resolutions that are going to follow this motion, we may now add that a joint committee within this Senate may be set up to investigate what happened to those money, because it came to about $2 billion naira for that Safe School initiative. I want to commend Stephen for doing this. It is necessary for each and every one of us to be concerned when we saw the picture of the state of the school in Kagara. There was no perimeter fencing, there was no such thing to protect these children. And the reason for the Safe School initiative was to make sure that they have this kind of protection. And I dare say, finally, Mr. President, if we don't do these investigations, if we don't find what happened in all these things, people will continue to run away with state funds and we won't know what to do about it. I so submit.
Senator Ibrahim Hassan Hadeja.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ibrahim Hassan Hadeja, Jigawa Northeast. Mr. President, in rising to support this motion, I think in line with what the minority leader has said, we need to clarify the issues surrounding the Safe School initiative. It wasn't even a budgeted figure. This initiative was a fund, public-private fund launched in 2014 in Davos with a pledge for $10 million. As it is, we are not even sure that that $10 million pledge has been redeemed. But I think based on the limited scope, the intention then was to apply this fund for creating safer schools in 3 states, because this was on the aftermath of the Chibok abduction. These 3 states were Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe, and the first application was actually limited to those 2 states. So I think, Mr. President, we need to go beyond the Safe School Fund or the Safe School Initiative and come up with a program that is all-encompassing. This was a solution that was applied because of the Chibok situation. Nobody envisaged that in the Northwest and North Central you will have schools being attacked and students abducted, which is what is happening now. So we need to enlarge the scope by getting the federal government involved and even the states, Mr. President. When the United States was faced with a similar problem after a school shooting in 1999, they decided to adopt safety procedures for all their schools. 32 states actually created laws that mandated school drills in their schools. And I believe that in Afghanistan, which faced a similar situation, there was a fund, within 2 years, they had fenced about 8,500 schools. So I think, Mr. President, if we need to go beyond the Safe School Initiative, this is a fund with limited application. And I don't think even if the whole $10 million is in place, it will solve the problem that we have of fencing most of our boarding schools and ensuring that we have security gadgets to protect our students. So I think when we come to the prayers, Mr. President, we need to ask for more. Yes, the Safe School Initiative is good. We need to find out what happened to it. But in its application, it did not envisage the situation that we have found ourselves in today. So I think we need a much wider scope, Mr. President, and I hope that when we come to the prayers, we'll call for a more robust engagement by both the state and federal government to come up with a program that takes care of the situation that we have on the ground. Not just limited to a situation that occurred in 2014 and which has become fundamentally different now in its scope and application. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Senator Barrow Jibrin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Barrow Jibrin. I represent Kano North. First of all, let me commend my colleague for bringing forward this motion. It is apt and very, very well put together and direct to the point. Mr. President, let me say that our schools are not only dilapidated, especially public schools. But to add salt into an open injury, these schools are not safe. They are not safe. It has now become the order of the day for kidnappers and bandits to go into these schools, kidnap kids, the pupils and students for ransom. This is inhuman, and this is something that should be condemned by all and sundry. And this is what this motion is crafted to address. And it is something that everyone should add their voice to what is contained in this motion. We should continue to condemn the wanton kidnapping of our children for ransom, and also create means of stopping these people from using our children to, get money. Mr. President, the fact remains that the foundation of every country relies on its use. Therefore, we shouldn't talk with our foundation. When we allow our youth not to have proper education through what is happening to our public schools now, then our future is in trouble. A means must be designed, must be created to make sure that the funds that has been put aside for this initiative is not only, we should find a way to increase what is in this fund so that we'll be able to make sure that we make our schools safe. Not only to make them safe, but get them put together in a manner that they'll be conducive for learning. But as they are now, they are not conducive for learning at all. And as I said earlier, add to that, they are not safe. Therefore, the local governments, the state governments, and the federal government should work together to make sure that these schools are kept safe, they are properly put together in a manner that will be conducive for learning. It is a necessity and we must do it. Mr. President, I urge my colleagues to support this motion because of its importance. I say so, Mr. President.
Senator Ahmad Bubakaita.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ahmed Bubakaita, Katuna North. Mr. President, a lot have been said about this bill, and it's timely, especially looking at what is happening in our secondary school and even attempt in some tertiary institutions. But Mr. President, while I totally agree with the submission of all the previous speakers, my problem is how we think we can address this issue immediately. We all know that our security agencies have been stretched. As of today, we are moving troops from one danger zone, one zone to another just to be able to address these issues. Now, if we had to do this, then we have to make far-reaching decisions, and we have to make sure that we involve the security agencies on the need to increase military personnel. If you are going to take or assign troops or military soldiers to secondary schools and even primary schools, because you never can know where they are going to attack, then how many secondary schools we have to do that to? And how many secondary schools do we have in Nigeria and primary schools? Because they can attack, they can, if you keep them, if you station the military at the secondary school, they may begin to attack the primary school. So I agree with this, but I think in addressing this issue, we have to go beyond thinking of an immediate solution. We have to provide for more security personnel to be able to cover this institution. At least in the interim too, we are able to say our schools and our higher institutions are safe. I am reiterating this, or I'm saying this because I know I don't want a situation where we have a very good motion, we discuss about it and we do everything here, but yet the realities on ground cannot address the issues raised here. So we should be mindful, or at least we should begin to think of how do we now, over a period of time, be able to achieve what we are proposing. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Kabir Warkia.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I'm Senator Engineer Kabir Barkia, representing Katsina Central. Mr. President, I rise to support this very, very important motion. Of course, very important in the sense that, yes, it affects the education of our students, school students. Mr. President, if we look at these problems of kidnapping these students from public schools, it's a very serious issue, Mr. President, I keep on asking myself, is it because the students of the public schools are 99% children of the masters of this country, that nothing is being done? At least happened for the first time, second. So we shouldn't allow it to continue like that, Mr. President. Because we are really, if we continue, allow this to continue, we are sitting on a time bomb, Mr. President. Because if children of this, students of this public school don't continue with their education, we are going to have many bandits. Because if you look at all these bandits now we have, majority of them are just, 99% of them are illiterate. So do we continue again to produce more illiterate? So therefore, Mr. President, we have to look at it critically. And then the federal government has to come up with a program that will stop this banditry issue, especially, the kidnapping of the student. So, Mr. President, I definitely support this motion, and I really commend the presenter of this motion. Thank you very much.
Is anybody against the motion? We'll go to the prayers. Prayer 1. Urge the federal government to collaborate with various state governments in order to restore, revive, and revalidate the Safe School initiatives in Nigeria. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Those against any say aye. Prayer 2. Urge the federal government of Nigeria to collaborate with various states and local government area councils to urgently design and implement a workable arrangement to deploy well-armed security teams around all schools in Nigeria. Distinguished Stephen Ode, I think Senator Babakaita made a point here. If we are asking for all the schools in Nigeria to have, we won't even have enough to go around all the schools in the country, talk less of doing other jobs. It's like going to be a difficult resolution to implement. I don't know whether we can rework it, recouch it, or I don't know. But I think this is going to be a very difficult thing for government to do. That all the schools in Nigeria, and the schools are just very, very many. Is there any way we can make it a little bit workable?
Mr. President, we can limit it to unity schools.
We can limit it to what? Senator Ibrahim Shekaro, Kano Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, let me share with my distinguished colleagues the experience we had in the early 80s when there were some discipline challenges in all our schools. The then federal government decided to recruit retired military personnel and were all deployed to all our schools. I had the privilege of having some of them as a school principal then, Most schools had 2 or 3 or 4. They were charged with the responsibility of maintaining discipline in our schools. They were all retired military personnel from the Nigerian Legion, and they were fully engaged. And the state ministries of education were made to take charge of their salaries or allowances. So I think, as you rightly mentioned, Mr. President, there's no way we can ask the government to deploy armed forces to all our schools, with thousands of such schools available. But we may probably apply what happened in those days, perhaps make an amendment to request the government, of course in collaboration with the state governments, to identify retired military, retired policemen, retired civil defense, who were trained, at least even if they are not armed, Mr. President, their presence in the schools will help. We used to use these retired military personnel in schools. We were running the cadets in our schools. They were handling it. They do some drillings during the evenings. They do give some guidance on self-protection, self-awareness on security matters. All of these could be given by such retired people, and we have hundreds of thousands of them between the armed forces, be it the police, the military, the army, the air force, the navy, and other paramilitary services. I'm sure we have very many of such retired personnel who could be engaged. At least our students and the staff in our school, Mr. President, would like to be guided and trained on emergency situations. What do they do? How do they report? But the situation we have now, where there is nothing, no reporting, the staff are not even trained, nobody is aware between the staff and the students as to what to do when there are emergencies, either kidnapping or fire incidents or any serious security challenge. So I think, Mr. President, if this can be probably considered and see how we can amend our prayer to reflect these past experiences, that will help in making some progress towards addressing the security challenges in our institutions, Mr. President.
Well, let me read an attempt here to amend the prayer, because as it is, government cannot deploy well-armed security teams around all schools in Nigeria. We don't have that capacity. So I would urge the federal government of Nigeria to collaborate with the various states and local government areas, area councils, to urgently design and implement a workable arrangement to deploy special security personnel in our schools in Nigeria. And that may tally with the recruitment of special this thing, but I don't know, we can refine it. Yes, Deputy Chief Whip.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I think in view of what he has said, yes, sir, I just want to make one point, sir, that based on the comments you have even made, what I've seen here is for us to make one recommendation urging the Federal Ministry of Education under the auspices of the National Council on Education to look at, to revive and revalidate the safe school initiatives in Nigeria. Because when you do that, that solves all the problem. Whatever the National Council on Education says, federal will do its part, states will do its part, local government will do its part. And that solves all the issues.
Leader, is that what you wanted to say?
My own is a bit different, sir, but on the same vein. My own is to urge the Federal Ministry of Education to direct the Universal Basic Education Commission, in collaboration with their state counterparts, to design a sustainable program for securing educational institutions across the country.
Leader, my problem with that is we shouldn't limit it to Universal Basic Education Commission. Because there could be, let it be an interagency thing, not Universal Basic Education. If we leave it to Universal Basic Education Commission, there could be some gaps. But if we leave it to government, like the Deputy Chief was saying, if we leave it to the Federal Ministry of Education or to federal government to handle it, National Council on Education, then they will see the necessity of bringing the stakeholders who are going to be responsible, rather than leaving the thing to Universal Basic Education Commission. And by the way, we are talking about tertiary institutions as well, in addition to basic education. So is that okay for the amendment of this second prayer number 2? Leader, are you okay with that? Okay. So who is going to second the amendment made by the Deputy Chief Whip? Senator Babakaita.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to second the amendment as moved by the
distinguished colleagues. Those in favor of prayer number 2 as amended, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3. Urge the President and Commander-in-Chief. Can we leave this to just the first and second prayers? Yes. Senator Adi Ode.
I agree with you, Mr. President.
Are you okay if we leave out, if you drop prayers 3 and 4? Yeah, so we will have only prayers 1 and 2. I think they are comprehensive enough. Let him respond first.
I'm of the opinion that prayer 1, 2, and the last one, 4, should stand. We should expunge prayer 3. Mr. President, I said that I am of the opinion that prayer 1, 2, and the last one, 4, should stand, while prayer 3 should be expunged.
No, I don't think you need prayer 4. Yes, I don't think you need prayer 4. I think prayers 1 and 2 should be adequate. Yes, additional prayer, Minority Leader.
Thank you. Direct the committee on education, the 2 committees, basic and tertiary, to look into what happened to the funding of the Safe School initiative.
Any seconder? I can't see any hand. Minority Leader, there's problem. I can't see any hand. Okay. So, you have identified someone. So, Senator Ibrahim go to the rescue.
Yes, I just want to help him. I second the motion that will be moved by him. I second it.
But I want to assure you that's a great gift. Those in favor of the additional prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Well, distinguished colleagues, sorry? Okay, additional prayer.
That's secure only boarding school with perimeter fence using the $10 billion initiative as suggested by the Minority Leader. Thank you.
But you don't know where the money is now.
We can have the money, then all these boarding schools, we can just at least turn them with perimeter fence.
Okay. Any seconder, please. Senator Nora Ladi Dadut.
I Thank you, Mr. President. I, Senator Nora Dadut, representing Plateau South, I second.
Those in favor of the additional prayer by Senator Kabir Barkia say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Well, thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. I think we have focused from our debates and the comments. It appears we have focused so much on armed security to be present in the premises. I think we should be liberal enough to look at and consider how the school itself, how a school could be secured in terms of how the perimeter fencing will be, the entrances to the premises, to the classrooms, to the dormitories. I think these are the kind of things so that even if you have one or two security personnel there, they will be assisted by the kind of infrastructure within and surrounding the school. Probably that is where the National Council on Education will come in, because let it be a national policy. Let it be a national policy that every state government, and in that case, state governments control the secondary schools and the primary schools, and the federal government, of course. If we are talking about the basic level, the federal government colleges and other tertiary institutions should have this kind of secured environment in terms of fencing, in terms of how the gates into the institutions, the doors into the classes, the dormitories, the dining rooms, and so on and so forth. These are things that can help. But if we emphasize on just armed people, we may never have enough. And that will overstretch our security system again. We are already overstretched. But thank you very much. This is a very important motion. But let me also add that the former British Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, came to Nigeria and said there was $20 million. That was for the school, Safe School initiative. He was the driver of that initiative when President Goodluck Jonathan was elsewhere. And I agree, our committee should find out the implementation that took place and what happened. Why is it stalled? And the National Council on Education should actually be in position now, given our circumstances, recently having abductions in our schools, to come up with some national policies and guidelines on securing our institutions. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth and sixth order of the day are House bills for concurrence, as listed on the order paper. With your permission, distinguished senators will recall that these bills were read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 20th June 2020 and Tuesday, 4th February 2020, respectively. Mr. President, for the simple nature of the bills and the inter-chamber reciprocity that is important in our legislative activities, I will use a single lead debate for these bills.
You may proceed.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, we have two bills from the House. The first one is the National Commission for Refugees Act, CAP N21, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2020, which is House Bill number 171, and the University of Agriculture Jalingo Establishment Bill 2021, which is also House Bill number 720. The National Commission for Refugees Act, CAP N21, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2020 was read the first time on 1st July 2020. This bill seeks to repeal the National Commission for Refugees Act, CAP N21, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and enact the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons Bill to provide a framework for the management, rehabilitation, return, reintegration, and resettlement of refugees, migrants, and victims of displacement. The University of Agriculture Jalingo Establishment Bill 2021, which is House Bill 750, was read the first time on Tuesday, 4th February 2020. This bill seeks to establish a specialized University of Agriculture to be located in Jalingo Town, Taraba State. Mr. President, my distinguished colleague, these bills were passed by both chambers of the 8th National Assembly. They were straightforward and have again gone through the necessary legislative processes, including the public hearing in the House of Representatives. I therefore urge you to support the second reading of these bills as we refer them to the Committee of the Whole for close consideration. Thank you and God bless.
Any comment? Please, let's be very brief so that we keep to our time. It's already 12:43. Deputy Chief Whip.
Yeah, Mr. President, mine is actually to second because it's talking about the second reading before referral. So mine is to second that this bill be read the second time because it's a very straightforward one. The intendment was only to include the reality of internally displaced persons in the bill so that it's captured within the framework of what the Commission is to do. So I so second, Mr. President.
Is there anybody against the bill? Okay, I will put the question on each of them as would be necessary. Those in favor that these bills be now read a second time, say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to repeal the National Commission for Refugee Act and 21 laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 and enact the National Commission for Refugee, Migrant and Internally Displaced Persons Act for the management, rehabilitation, return, reintegration, and resettlement of refugees, migrants and victims of displacement and for related matters 2021 HB 171 second reading.
A bill for an act to repeal the National Commission for Refugees Act, Cap N21 laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and enact the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants, and Internally Displaced Persons Act for the management, rehabilitation, return, reintegration, and resettlement of refugees, migrants, and victims of displacement, and for related matters 2021, second reading taken. A bill for an act to amend the Federal University of Agriculture Act to establish the Federal University of Agriculture Jalingo and for related matters 2021, second reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, in accordance with Order 81, subsection 1, I will move a motion for the bill to be referred to the Committee of the Whole for further legislative action. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves into Committee of the Whole to consider the reports clause by clause, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, we start with bill for an act to repeal the National Commission for Refugees. And this bill has 47 clauses. So because the bills were processed fully by our colleagues in the House of Representatives, the necessary public hearings were held. I think we can afford to be a little bit fast. Those in favor that clauses 1 to 10 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 11 to 20 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 21 to 30 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 31 to 40 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 41 to 45, actually to 46, stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clause 47 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The long title, which is on page 1, those in favor that the long title stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Then we go to the second bill on University of Agriculture, Jalingo. Those in favor that clauses 1 to 10 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 11 to 20 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 21 to 27 28. Those in favor that clauses 21 to 28 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Explanatory memorandum on page 34. Those in favor that the explanatory memorandum stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The short title. Those in favor that the short title stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The long title. Those in favor that the long title stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to raise a motion for this chamber to resume plenary in order for the chairman to report progress. I so move.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Those in favor that the chair reports progress, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the National Commission for Refugees Act, Cap N21 LFN 2004, repeal and enactment Bill 2021 and approved as follows. Clauses 1 to 47 as recommended. Schedule nil. Long title as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? The Senate in the Committee of the Whole also consider the University of Agriculture Jalingo Establishment Bill 2021 and approved as follows. Clauses 1 to 28 as recommended, schedule as recommended, explanatory memorandum as recommended, short title as recommended, long title as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you. Senate Leader. Third reading. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do read the bills for the third time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to repeal the National Commission for Refugee Act, CAF N21 laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and enact the National Commission for Refugees, Migrant and Internally Displaced Persons Act for the management, rehabilitation, return, reintegration, and resettlement of refugees, migrant and victims of displacement, and for related matters 2021, SB 171, third reading.
A bill for an act to repeal the National Commission for Refugees Act, CAP N21 laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and enact the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants, and Internally Displaced Persons Act for the management, rehabilitation, return, reintegration, and resettlement of refugees, migrants, and victims of displacement, and for related matters 2021, third reading taken, and the bill is passed. Leader of the Senate. You have read all the two. Okay, Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to amend the Federal University of Agriculture to establish the Federal University of Agriculture Jalingo and for related matters 2021 HB 750, third reading.
A bill for an act to amend the Federal University of Agriculture Act to establish the Federal University of Agriculture Jalingo and for related matters 2021, third reading taken, and the bill is passed. Well, congratulations. These two bills were from the House of Representatives. Our colleagues there had worked on them, and this is a concurrence that we have done. And we also pray that our bills in the House will also have the same attention. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, having concluded today's proceedings on our order paper, I hereby move that this distinguished chamber adjourn to Wednesday, 24th February 2021 at 10 a.m. prompt. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do adjourn till tomorrow, Wednesday, 25th